we go. Hello, and welcome to this section of the HX Leaders Summit for June 2022. I have with me here today a really special guest, Naiara Cantabrana, who leads employee experience for Randstad in Spain. And Naiara has been part of these groups for a number of years, and she has some really interesting experience. One of the most experienced people actually who's leading this field and has been doing this for nearly 4 years. So that's really rare to find someone who's been doing this that long and has had some really great experiences that she's going to share with us here today. So we feel very fortunate to have Naiara with us. And Naiara has been with Randstad since 2006. She is a psychologist by training. She's taken courses and has a degree in HR management. She has a master's in coaching, and she's taken courses in people analytics. So she has some really great background. And what I really like about Naiara is just also how she's been able to get her leadership team on board and really build some not just experiences, but also a new mindset and way of thinking at Randstad. So with that, I'd like to introduce you, Naiara. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks a lot for such an introduction, Elliot, and thanks also for inviting me here. I think it's really nice that there is a community of professionals that share the same passion, where we can share, learn, and also inspire each other. So thanks for that.
Yeah, you're most welcome. So tell us a little about how you got started. When and how did you get your start in employee experience?
So that was back in June 2017, and I got a phone call from my former boss, and he told me like, hey, today we had a management team members board, and we have decided to run a project on employee experience, and we would like you to lead it. And so my mind went like, because I had no idea about employee experience. But at the same time, I was super happy to have such a challenge, and I was immediately really inspired by that, and yeah, willing to discover more. So I will never thank enough the opportunity I was given without not having any idea. So because it has led me to a path that I'm really enjoying, and that it really fits with what is important to me and what I like to do. So that was the start line, was a black hole, really.
Like it is for a lot of people that we've talked to. So actually you've been doing this for 5 years. So that's you're one of the earliest people to really be doing this work. What was it like for you in 2017? Take us back and tell us a little bit about how you got your start.
Yeah, well, back then there was not so much, let's say, information about employee experience. So I think customer experience has been much more popular and integrated in organizational practices, but not so much employee experience. In fact, here in the presentation, you can see how the interest for this concept, how has it evolved along the time. And the yellow dots are that moment in June 2017. So I started trying to look for information. Back then, I found a book that really helped me from Jacob Morgan. It was The Future of Work. And that was like the most meaningful material I found. And then I was also searching for other resources, but yeah, there was still not much back then. And a lot was drinking from customer experience, right? So I also found that many people were doing employee experience just like customer experience, which for me, I will explain later, it's not really exactly the same, even if there are a lot of similarities. But so that was the beginning, just trying to learn, really.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about how you got started and what steps you took in the beginning. And how did you know those were the right ones to take? I think that's a good question too.
Well, I think I have to be honest, we didn't know, and not only me, also I was working with a team, so we didn't know that they were the first ones to take. So there was also a lot of trial and error in the way, you know. So, but basically, the first step, like I said, was research and understanding what was employee experience. What was that, you know, what was expected about that. And then we decided like a roadmap to get started. So for that, it was very helpful, not only what I read or I researched, but also the knowledge of my colleagues. So the marketing director back then, which now is also my boss, she had a lot of experience in customer experience, and she taught me everything she knew about how to lead a journey, how to design a journey, you know. So that was the first roadmap design, I would say. And when we defined the steps we wanted to take, then there was a big amount of work to do in the listening and understanding part of the perception of employees, and that we didn't do it alone. So we hired some partners because we wanted to understand what was important for our employees, how satisfied they were with different moments that were important for them or issues that were important for them. Also, what were the pains, you know, of their journey. And we thought that maybe if it was us, HR, listening, there could be, you know, some kind of maybe not opening completely. And just in case, we thought, okay, let's make this super anonymous. Let's give, you know, a framework where they can really speak up and really talk. And so that we made sure that we had like the right input. And from that work, we could identify what was the journey we wanted to decide. So then we thought, okay, let's map the candidate. What's the experience like for the candidates that approach Randstad? How is it for our employees? And we also thought about how do we want it to be for our ex-employees when they leave the company. Okay. And from that first roadmap, then we designed actions, behaviors, and tools that would shape, you know, like the experience we wanted to deliver. Yeah. So that was really like, in a high level, a little bit our roadmap, doing those first steps in employee experience.
Okay, Naiara, can you tell us a little bit about your first project and or area of focus, and how did you approach it, and what were the outcomes?
Sure. So this was the first outcome. It's Randstad Emotion. That's how we called our employee experience project. And that's how it looked like back then. So we defined 3 meta moments for the candidate, for the employee, and for the ex-employee. And at each meta moment, we defined certain stages. And in total, we came up with 15 stages. And for each stage, we defined a touch point, different touch points, and we came out with 60 touch points. So to make it tangible, let's say like that, meta moment would be as an employee, the stage of your first day, let's say like that. And one touch point would be the moment you meet your colleagues, right? Or the moment you enter the office. So yeah. That's how it worked. And in that moment, in those touch points, we identified what were the emotional needs that the person had in those moments, and also the operative needs. Because sometimes, so when you enter a new office, you have an emotional need, you know, to be accepted, right? To feel good. And also you have operative needs like, hey, I need to understand how this functions. What is lunchtime? Where do I leave my food? Where is the printer? You know, things like that are not emotional, but you need to know. So we identified those, and from that point, then we identified cultural behaviors we wanted to see in our managers and colleagues, and also tools that would help them deliver and the experience we consciously defined for all those touch points. And that was the first outcome. But of course, it's not something static. It was the first outcome back then. And it's something that it has been reviewed. And last year, we again measured for each of those moments, what was the satisfaction and the importance for them. And from the data we infer from those results, we tried to modify certain things. So that was the base to continue creating our employee experience also today.
Fantastic. So what do you think helped make this a successful start for you? What were your first ingredients of success?
So I think our background helped a lot, because we as Randstad, our HR strategy was much inspired in Spain by the theory of the service profit chain, where when you look at it, the people are at the beginning of the profit chain, let's say like that. We also had a high culture of customer focused culture, and we had defined our customer journeys, and we also were very much focused in our candidates, the ones we deliver to our clients. So we also had designed that candidate journey that was much more done from the product development side. So this was like a nice base for HR to start thinking in that way to our other stakeholder, that was our employee, that it is our employee. So that helped a lot in our journey to human centricity, to say it like that. Yeah. But for me, the key was, so when you are going to a summit, right, not all the year has the same impact or is not as important. And for me, in that journey to the human centricity goal that we've been pursuing, I could say that our CEO and management team support has been key. They really believed in this. They were the ones that promoted, it was not an HR practice that we decided to deliver or, to create. They were convinced that this was something strategic. And that, I think, it's key for anyone who wants to make that path.
Yeah. What do you think helped them come to that conclusion? How were they prepared to think that way?
Well, I think, like I said, we are a service company, and I think our success starts in the heart of our employees. So when we based our HR strategy in that service profit chain theory, we are already giving much value to this. And this might sound a bit romantic when I say those words, but basically for those who are not so romantic, I would tell them this other way, the same thing, right? A company cannot grow more than its capacity to attract and retain talent. So it has to do with attracting external talent, with developing internal talent and engaging them so that they want to stay, and then you can grow. So you can look at it either way, but at the end, it's all about that. So that's a bit our management team mindset, and that obviously helps a lot when integrating this in the strategy and making it really count and not something vague or just like a side practice. You really give room to it and you follow up and you really care about that.
That's great.
So, yeah, because at the end, when we want to get talent engaged, like we have two different sides of the same coin. Like on one hand, we are talking about external talent. On the other hand, we are talking about internal talent. And when we talk about external talent and attractive people, we are moving in the world of expectations, our employee value proposition, right? And that's really important to have it in place and that you have an appealing employee value proposition, but it cannot be empty. You can promise a lot, but it needs to have some bodies as in substance, and that comes from the experience you are really creating within your organization. And that was the mindset of our management team. They really believe first in delivering and then in promising. That's a little bit our values. So they thought, let's create a good employee experience. Let's work internally our talent. And then we're really prepared to deliver our promise also to the external world. So there you're working really the people that are today in your project and that they are really committed to it. And you're also appealing for other people that might want to join you, but it starts inside. And I think that's a key difference, because sometimes we are talking a lot about the employee value proposition, and I mean in the network, and about like a branding thing, but it's not a branding thing, because then it needs to happen, right, when you're inside. So we believe more first in doing and then in like communicating, let's say like that. So that all those things were, I think, crucial for them to decide to make like a bet on employee experience and put resources in there.
So tell me about how have you come to define employee experience in the last few years? Where are you today in terms of how you see employee experience?
So for me, employee experience, this is a good definition I really feel comfortable with. So it doesn't mean it is that, but it's how I see it. So the perception and feelings really that an employee has derived for all the interactions that that person has within the organization she or he works. So at the end, it's something very intangible, and then you can measure it because then we have employee engagement, which is the outcome of it. But the experience is just perceptions and feelings and emotions, right? It's a really intangible dimension, but you can measure it and you can work on it. And I think when I was saying before in the introduction that I see like very big difference. Well, I don't know if it's big or not, but there is a difference between customer experience and employee experience, is because the employee lives in a dimension that the customer doesn't live with the supplier, right? So personally, when I'm working employee experience, I'm thinking this is my compass, this is what guides me, the E and the X. And the E is the what and the X is the how, right? How, for me, it has sense to do it and work through it. So the what has like 4 parts, and those 4 parts are those ones. It's like purpose. So your experience is very linked to the purpose of your organization, and this plays a role on how you feel in what you're doing. And this dimension of culture and leadership is also the intangible dimension that evolves your experience. So this is not happening in the customer experience side, right? And culture and leadership is really determining the reality of your day-to-day work, how they treat you, what are the beliefs that are in your organization, what are the behaviors that are allowed and the ones that are not allowed. So all those are not minor things. They might be more intangible, but they are there. They are super present every day, and they are a big part of the employee experience. And then, of course, we have more tangible issues that like technology, the workspace. And then, of course, comes this 4th layer, which is the concrete moments that matter, right? This is very typical in customer experience. Yeah. But this is why I think we cannot approach it in the same way than customer experience, not in the practice to understand things, but I mean conceptually they are not the same thing, and not because the stakeholder changes, but because the things related to that experience are more complex, in my opinion. It's just an opinion, but that's how I see it.
So Naiara, tell us a little bit about the projects that you're currently working on. What are they like now?
So we have projects in all 4 dimensions, to say it like that. So we are working around purpose, understanding what's the impact of the job that we have. So what is the impact of the job of our consultants and different colleagues? So that's one work stream. Then we are also working on things related to culture and leadership. So there is a strong focus on equity, diversity, and belonging also. And of course, anything that has to do with talent management and development, because that's an important issue for the future of the organization. So we are very much focused on how we develop our talent, the succession plans, and what do we need for the future. In technology and workspace, we are also working around flexibility, having different thoughts on how we should approach it, how we should continue that stream. And of course, we are also reviewing different moments that are important for our people, that we want to make them better and more aligned to what they are expecting at the moment. So at the end, everything is experience, and we have specific projects and things going on in the 4 dimensions that we think are important for employee experience.
That's great. So how have you developed capability for all of this to support it?
So that's very related with the X, which is the how. And I think we have built capability in with 2 things, like with having a data-driven HR team. So a lot integrating data in our decision-making process, not only the decision-making, but also in the understanding process. And also designing new designing models. And what I mean by all this is like we have integrated new tools like Peakon, which is tool that enables us to make a survey to our employees on a, could be weekly, bi-weekly, quarterly, or whatever frequency you decide. In Randstad Spain, we review that quarterly. Then we also use Crunch HR, which is a tool that enables us to understand our people analytics topics in terms of turnover, hiring, span of control, talent, equity, diversity, different topics related to our workforce. And then we have also developed other local tools like based on Power BI, like the Talent Radar and My Career. So that's basically things that we didn't have some years ago that have been integrated into the team that, yeah, have changed a little bit our way of working, our way of approaching issues, and our way of analyzing and also proposing solutions. So that's on one hand. Then also, we've been thinking about new intervention methods. Very much at the beginning, when I entered HR, we function like any other HR department, pretty much like a top-down, practices, like thinking that we as an HR had the pressure to know it all, to come up with all the solutions and to know it all basically. And now in the new intervention methods, when we decide and design, there is a testing part many times, but the design is done with other people from the organization, because within an organization there is a lot of knowledge outside HR, and when you integrate that in your designing process, you can get really good input, because you're integrating new points of view, and maybe you are looking at it from a HR perspective, from policies perspective, or development perspectives, and they are looking at it from the reality of the day-to-day, how this integrates. So really good ideas come up, and I think all that helps to build capability. So the tools, data, and new designing models were things that help us. But if I had to say something about capability, I think there is one more thing. And I think mindset determines a big part of the capability, because at the end, when you're open to admit that you don't know, when you're open to learn, when you're open to fail, right? Like, it's important in the learning process and in the development process of achieving something, to give permission to fail. Also, when you're open to listen, I think when you have that, and also any situation, you're willing to see the opportunity and willing to grow, I think that's capability, that's really something that sets you in a position then to take the tools, take the models, take whatever, and really build. So I believe capability is not so much only about tools and processes, which of course they help along the way, but it has much to do with mindset. And that's my learning, or at least my belief.
That's great. No, I totally agree. I think it's a different way of thinking, and you're really trying to create a new culture that is open to new kinds of questions, and being patient with not knowing the answers at the beginning, because our habit in HR is to start with solutions rather than defining clearly the problems.
Yeah.
So
doesn't matter.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I say it doesn't matter if you don't know it. I mean, your responsibility is to find a way to it. It's not the pressure should be in the right place. Should be to focus in what you can do, and you can learn, you can read, you can find out, all those are things in your control. Maybe you don't know, but you can control it. And if you put there the focus, then you might fail, you might not know, but it's just a status, it's a moment, then it can be built. So
yeah, that's great advice. So any last words of wisdom that you would give to somebody who's, say, in their first couple of years? You've been doing this for 5 years. What would you tell someone who's just getting started?
So I wouldn't call it wisdom, but it's like my beliefs or what I have learned, and I could say at least those 4. I could say experience is not static, and what's most important even than that is unique to your purpose and culture. So when we are seeing other practices, I think it's really good to listen to other companies, to other colleagues, to learn and to get inspired, but never copy paste something. Always think if that practice makes sense to your organization, to the clients you're trying to deliver, to the strategy you have as an organization, and if it matters to your talents, you know. So it's super good to learn, to be open, but never copy paste. Understand that at the end, you need to come up with a solution that fits your strategy and your people and your business. So that would be the first thing that I have learned. Then I think data is your best friend along the way. So to understand situations and also to make decisions, I used to work without much data in my day-to-day, and now that I have it, yeah, I really like it because it gives sense, you know. It really takes you to places that maybe you couldn't see it just with your eyes, you know. So I think it's key. So I think data is a best friend of an HR professional. And then, like I mentioned just before, I think the power of co-creation with bottom-up initiatives are really, really powerful. So with this, I don't mean that we just open and hear anything in any way. So you also have to do it carefully because you need to manage expectations. You know, you really need to be careful with those kind of interventions. But if you're careful and if you do it in a mindful way, to integrate all the knowledge that there is across the organization for different topics related to people, it's very powerful because you really get insights that only in your HR team you wouldn't know. So we know a lot and we need to recognize that. But yeah, to recognize others' knowledge and the contribution they can make just makes the organization stronger in their decisions. So that's also we are experiencing in the last, I would say, months since last year, I would say, or something like that, and more strongly this year. And I'm super enjoying that part when we put it into practice, because I can really see what's the outcome of a meeting, you know, and you think, yeah, I wouldn't arrive that alone, or this is much better because we arrived to this part and this, you know, gives more sense, or you confirm, or, you know, it could happen anything. And the last thing I would say, I think curiosity and a growth mindset are key assets in any change process, in anything really, right? To address any topic that you like, that you're responsible for, or yeah, I think that's an asset for life. So those could be things that I can share that are part of me.
Great. Well, thank you so much for this, Naiara. I really appreciate your taking the time to share your experiences with us. And 5 years is certainly a wealth of knowledge. And this is great wisdom. And I think these are really fantastic learnings for anyone to take on. So thank you again for your time today. And I really appreciate you sharing this with us.
No, thank you, Elliot, for inviting me. It was a pleasure to be here with all of you. Thanks.